Hello everyone, this is MC Deck Discussions and I'm Abby Small and it's time for another deck discussion. Today we're doing a leadership deck for Iceman called the X-Men Cometh, and this is a follow-up to a video that I put out recently that had, where I just went online onto, what is this website called? Marvel CDB, and I created 3 decks on the spot during the video. And then afterwards, I decided to go ahead and try out a deck, take a look at those decks, see which one I'd like to start with, and then start modifying it to become the next deck that I test. And I did that, and it wasn't working too well. So the enemies, the villains that I was testing against were Claw, Unus, Four Horsemen, and Magneto. But even against Claw, I tried Claw on Standard and Expert and ended up losing with that previous deck. So I do want to show that previous deck real quickly to see what, I want you to see what I adjusted from. Okay, so that previous deck that I ended up essentially rejecting was this one here called Fury in the Clutch or in the Ditch. This one I have not published publicly. And the idea behind this deck was, it was based on that You Got This. So those 3 decks that I put together, one of them had used You Got This, which had this event, 1 cost, hero response. After you exhaust your hero to make a basic thwart or attack, discard an ally you control, add that ally's matching power to your hero's power for this use, ready your hero. And I figured, hey, if it had plenty of allies in it, and especially had Nick Fury in order to get lots of card draw, then it should work pretty well. And Iceman loves to ready because then he gets a chance to use his freeze ability, right, which has this interrupt when Iceman makes a basic attack or defense against an enemy, attach a set-aside copy of Frostbite to that enemy, which then, decreases that enemy's attack and scheming ability. But it just wasn't really working. And I used a lot of recursion in this, right? We have Make the Call to bring allies back from the discard pile, had a couple of regroups that could put allies back into the hand, and I even had rapid response as well. And I usually expect those types of combinations to work quite well, and it just wasn't working as effectively as I thought it would. So I went ahead and started over and came up with this other deck that did end up going well. So let's head back to that other deck. All right, so here it is again, called the X-Men Cometh. And this deck ended up being undefeated against those 4 villains that I mentioned, right? I played each of them in Standard and Expert and beat all of them and felt very controlled. And a lot of you by now might be familiar with that. I tend to use Nick Fury in a lot of my decks, but this one I wanted to stick with just X-Men, right? So every single one of these allies is an X-Men ally. So we have tons of them because I wanted to be able to, for sure, rely on Utopia, which would allow Iceman to ready each time an X-Men ally enters. But then also this has, the ability to increase your ally limit by 1 if all of your allies are X-Men. So I was guaranteeing that that was possible. And I ended up having 3 or 4 allies in play at a time very frequently. And then I wanted to really push that ability to play off of these X-Men. So of course I included Uncanny X-Men. That's pretty much mandatory in a deck that really focuses on them in this way. So Uncanny X-Men is a 3-cost support. Play under any player's control. You can have max 1 of these per player. So each of your X-Men allies gets +1 hit point. So that allows them to stay out and play longer. And if each of your characters has the X-Men trait, each of your X-Men allies costs 1 fewer resource to play. So that also helps. Like very frequently, I was getting 2 allies out in play at a time in any given turn, especially because I had so many of them in the deck. And notice there's no recursion in this at all. So Make the Call isn't in here. It's just meant to be the allies that you get. Those are the ones that you're going to choose from to play as you make each pass through your deck. So this ended up going really well. So let me go ahead and talk about some other things that were really nice. Now, first of all, those were I'm considered to be the essential support cards. Those are the ones that I was really focused on getting into play. Uncanny X-Men and Utopia. And if you've seen some of my other deck discussions, another real emphasis is this upgrade that comes in Iceman's deck, and that is Cryokinetic Perception, right? So this is the one that after you use your freeze ability, and I'll go remind us what that is in a second here. After you resolve your freeze ability, exhaust this card, draw a card. If that card has an ice trait, ready Iceman. So first of all, it gives you the card draw, and secondly, you have the possibility of readying Iceman so that he gets his multiple attacks or thwarts. Well, really multiple attacks is what you want. And Utopia contributes to that too. So Utopia was contributing to it in a guaranteed way once Utopia was out. And then at a minimum, Cryokinetic Perception would draw a card and possibly also allow Iceman to ready. So quick reminder about Iceman's ability, right? It has this freeze ability, has an interrupt when Iceman makes a basic attack or defense against an enemy. Attach a set aside copy of Frostbite to that enemy. And hopefully I have Frostbite here. Yes, here we go. So, and as a reminder about what Frostbite is, right? So these are upgrades that are permanents that just sit on the side during the game. So once he uses his ability, he would attach one of these, and it would give -1 to the scheme and -1 to the attack of the enemy. And it has this forced response after the attached enemy activates or leaves play. Then you set this card aside again. So it only works until the enemy activates. All right. So, and a couple of things to help make sure that the right supports would get out, and at a minimum that upgrade. We also had build support in here, right? So two player side scheme. So build support, right, is the player side scheme that costs 1 to get out, and then you have to do 3 thwart per player, get rid of that. And then when this card is defeated, the side scheme is defeated, each player may search their deck and discard pile for support with a cost of 3 or less, put it into play. So a lot of times I would choose Uncanny X-Men since that was the key card. But sometimes I would choose X-Jet in order to help play these other supports, especially if I knew Uncanny X-Men had to be coming pretty soon in my deck anyway. All right. And if Uncanny X-Men was already in play, then Utopia might be the choice. And then Superpower Training was the player side scheme that when it's defeated, each player may search their deck and discard pile for an identity-specific upgrade and put it into play. And of course, the key target for that was Cryokinetic Perception. And then we do have some other great choices if that one is already in play. All right. So those were the key cards that one wants to get into play. And then once those are in play, you can really get going. And then other supports will help flesh that out further as the game progresses. So those other ones that are also important, so would include a particular note are the alter ego supports, Cerebro and Danger Room. So let's take a look at those, right? So Cerebro, so if you can see here that Cerebro is a 1-cost support, and you can only play it if your identity has the mutant trait, right, which is on the alter ego side for Iceman, right? So if you look at this, he has the ice trait and the X-Men trait on his hero side, and then on his alter ego side, he has the mutant trait. And all right, so here it is. So the alter ego action it has is exhaust Cerebro, search your top 5 cards of your deck for an X-Men ally, and of course with 14 allies, that's highly likely to get an X-Men ally. But you can search your whole deck instead if you control a psionic character, and then add that ally to your hand. And in this deck, there are a bunch of psionic allies. So Iceman himself is not psionically traded, but there are quite a few allies in here that are, including, we have Kid Omega. We also have M, Mirage, Phoenix, Professor X, right? So we had quite a few, I think that's all. No, even White Queen. So there are a whole bunch of these allies, really high likelihood that one of them is going to be in play when you're on alter ego side and be able to guarantee that you're going to get one of your allies into hand, which of course can either be used as a resource or be played. And being able to select the exact ally at the right time can be highly valuable. And there are all of these allies here. You can look at those on your own later if you'd like. But all of them have, some great abilities that can be used, at the time that you're looking for. And then another key support that was also meant to be used on the alter ego side is Danger Room. So this is a 2-cost support, and it has this alter ego response after an X-Men ally enters play, exhaust Danger Room. Then you search your deck and discard pile for a training upgrade and attach it to that ally. Any player whose alter ego has the mutant trait may trigger this ability. And of course, Iceman has the mutant trait on his alter ego side. And so we have, to go along with that, then these are the training, right? So it says training upgrade. And so we have two of these danger room trainings, which are training upgrades. And so you can attach these to an X-Men ally, max one training upgrade per ally. But if you could get, so since I had two of these, there were times when I would have, one on an ally and one on another ally. And the attached ally gets +1 thwart, +1 attack, and +1 hit point. In addition to, right, the Uncanny X-Men already gives them +1 hit point. So that's +2 hit points. So once you have one of these or even two allies out with these danger room training cards on them, then they become huge assets that can stay out in play for quite a while. And he has his own snow clones that can't have those attachments, but they can be continuously attacking each turn if one or both happen to be out in play. And then in addition to that, another card that would come out frequently is leadership skill, so another upgrade. And if you've seen some of my other leadership decks, I've used this card fairly often. It has 3 leadership counters, and it has an interrupt. When an ally makes a basic thwart or basic attack action, you remove 1 leadership counter from here, and that ally gets +1 thwart and +1 attack for that action. So now all of a sudden you have an ally that can attack or thwart for even more. So I would very often have an ally that was attacking or thwarting for 3 or 4. So that can be highly effective. And the cool thing is you only have to remove these leadership counters from here. You don't have to exhaust this. So when you regularly have 3 or 4 allies out there, you can use all 3 of these in the same turn if that's the most effective thing to do, and really, be highly effective in controlling the board or attacking the villain or whatever you need to do. So that ended up working really well. And those are the basics of the deck. I also included clarity of purpose here. So clarity of purpose, when you have this many allies in here, so first of all, that does give you the opportunity to defend with them. However, Iceman, because of him putting those his freeze ability, allowing him to put copies of Frostbite on the villain or any of the other enemies whenever he would attack them, and he can do that when he defends against them too. But I was using it, I think, pretty much solely when I was attacking, almost solely anyway. And so because those villains, the villain and other enemies would have decreased attack on them, I could let Iceman take a lot of the attacks. And so these allies could stay out and play more often, but also I could have the choice of using clarity of purpose when I wanted to, right? So this is a 1 cost upgrade, attach it to a friendly character, and I would attach it to Iceman. Max 1 per character, has the hero resource, exhaust this card and deal 1 damage to the attached character, generate a wild resource. So they're a very cheap resource generator. And Iceman is somebody who can take that damage rather easily. Plus, if he does ever need to heal, when he goes back to his alter ego side, he does have a recovery of 4, so a little better than your average hero with regard to that recovery. So that helps out too. But in addition, we're also running Triage in this deck, right? So Triage, when played, after Triage has this response after Triage enters play, heal 2 damage from an X-Men character. And actually, sometimes I'd use that on Iceman, but a lot of times I would actually use that on whichever ally had a danger, whatever, you might say strongest ally, had danger room training on it, so that ally could stay out and play even longer and be used a couple more times. So that combination of plays really worked quite well. And an additional thing to keep in mind, so this deck is meant to go down to alter ego side, and Iceman has the ability to do that better than, I'm pretty sure, well, not anybody, but better than the vast majority of heroes, because in addition to we have Professor X in here, but there's no recursion here. So Professor X is only going to be used at most one pass through. So he's not going to be able to, regularly confuse the villain. But Iceman has his own cards that can completely incapacitate the villain, and those are his frozen solid cards, right? So this is a 3-cost upgrade, has this condition of ice. It has these traits, of condition and ice, and you can only play it in hero form. Then it attaches to the enemy, maximum 1 per enemy, and it has this forced interrupt. When the attached enemy would activate, discard frozen solid instead. So that could be if the enemy is going to try to attack or try to scheme, and you could then discard frozen solid, and then you'd attach a set aside copy of Frostbite to that enemy. And so you put these on there, which help to incapacitate the enemy. And on top of that, Iceman has this other ability on his alter ego side, right? So when he goes to alter ego side, if you see his right down here, cool off at the bottom, has this response. After you change to this form, shuffle 1 ice card from your discard pile into your deck for each copy of Frostbite in play. So after you use that frozen solid card, you end up having, you use 1 or maybe both, you end up having those available in your discard pile to then put back into your deck as one of the cards when you turn over to alter ego side, as long as you're making sure to attack with Iceman regularly and use some of his other, some of his other cards also put those frostbites on the enemy. So with that ability, you can put 1 or more on there and be able to constantly put those cards back into the deck, allowing you to go down to alter ego fairly regularly and be able to utilize these extra supports that have these great alter ego abilities. And this deck, I really enjoyed playing this deck a ton. It was highly effective against all of these enemies, including the 4 Horsemen, by the way, which the 4 Horsemen, I hadn't played them since I originally played the box when it came out. And so, but I do know that they can be pretty tough, their combination of abilities, and it was really cool to have Iceman shut them down and be able to control the enemy throughout the deck. So let me make sure that's it. I'm pretty sure that is. Okay, and that's it for today's deck. If you enjoy this kind of content, please like and subscribe. And also, I love it when people comment and can have some conversations with them there. All right, have a good one, everybody.